morning. Whoever's here is here, and it's bad out there. So I'm glad that we're able to continue these classes despite not being able to do it in person. Today's topic is Behind Closed Doors, part 3. And we ended yesterday's class with helping people understand. Hold on a second. We have some people here, so we're going to let them in. Okay. Helping people understand their position and their role in this world. And once we know where our role is what God wants from each and every one of us, then we'll know how to behave properly behind closed doors. So we gave different interpretations and explanations of tzniut. And basically what we spoke about yesterday was dignity, which dignity is by far maintaining our dignity, maintaining our ability to protect that which could be exposed at certain moments, but need to be protected for the nempotiki. In other words, there is a dignified way of behaving in public, and there's a dignified way of behaving behind closed doors. To be able to obtain proper satisfaction, to be able to feel that which we need to feel behind closed doors, we need to maintain dignity at all times. What do I mean? We touched upon this briefly in the first class, and we said that if a person that exposes himself, meaning if a person is on top of his spouse in a public forum, whether it's a wedding, whether it's just a restaurant, whether it is on Facebook through pictures, whether it is in somebody's house with friends, and you feel, okay, we're going to sit on the couch, one on top of the other, because people expect us to be in love, and we need to show the world that we actually are in love. And thereby, we're going to be sitting extremely close to each other, hugging each other, necking, kissing, embracing, holding hands, and basically acting silly. I'm sure some of you have experienced this at a dentist, doctor waiting room where people are necking and kissing, and you say to yourself, I don't know where to turn. I don't know where to go. I don't know. Like, is this public behavior? Is this the way? Is this what I should be exposed to? Am I allowed to be privileged? Am I allowed to enter their bedroom? Is that something that is appropriate? And if you have maintained your sensitivity, which is number 5 in our message of tzniut, if you have a certain sensitivity, you recognize that that undignified behavior creates or makes you feel ashamed. Ashamed for the other, not ashamed for you. Ashamed to be present at something that's supposed to be so holy and so protected and so, hidden from the public eye. Because when a couple physically merges, it is a spiritual merge. And if it's a spiritual merge, then anything spiritual needs a protection. Take a look at the concept of a mechitza. What's a mechitza? A mechitza is a separation. So we know we're aware of the mechitza in a synagogue, and we're aware of a mechitza at a wedding. And we think to ourselves, why mechitza? Why does God want to deprive us from sitting next to our spouses in the synagogue? Why does God not want us to dance with our spouse at a wedding in a public forum? What is this mechitza? Is this mechitza stifling? Is this mechitza creating a situation where I'm secondary, or where I am not allowed to enjoy my spouse's presence? It's my husband after all. Why can I not dance at a wedding with my husband only? And here we're going to tap in onto this concept, onto this feeling of the knowing the position, knowing the job of each one of the couple to be able to maintain a dignified relationship, feel a meaningful relationship, create that privacy, that personal, the personal connection one to the other, to allow for each one to have their maintain their individuality, feel wholesome, create a sensitivity one for the other, and the result is something powerful, something spectacular, something meaningful, something that gives us all satisfaction. So to start with, and we're going to answer every single question, and we'll talk about the mechitza, but to start with, let us understand the role in the couple. God created the world, and he started the entire Torah by announcing his creation and by giving us a hint of the formula and the reason of why he's creating. So if you take a look at Pasuk Aleph, those of you that have the handout, the first Pasuk in the entire Torah is Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Thank you for that statement. We know it. The Torah continues and sort of colors in the missing dots, fills in the world, and shows what in the beginning he created, but what does Aretz, what does earth look like? What does heaven look like? And he continues to say that he created light, he separated the upper waters from the lower waters, he created trees and grass and plantation and the sun, the moon, the stars, the fish, the birds, the animals, and finally yours truly, the male and the female. I want to zero in on that first pasuk right now, which in that first pasuk, we understand the godly plan, the godly style, the godly formula, which is heaven and earth. When I say heaven, naturally, my finger, my arm, my head is going to rise, and I'm going to say, min hashamayim. You ever hear that? Min hashamayim. Everything that's happening to me now is from heaven. And I am going to be able to explain it to you. I'm putting up my finger up there, pointing to heaven. When I say, it's ordinary, it's mundane, it's earthly, it's materialistic, it's unimportant perhaps, or it's, I say, what do you want? I'm a materialist. I'm practical. I'll go like this. And my hands are lowered. This is God's style. He created two opposites. One that is heavenly, upward, abstract, spiritual, above, hard to reach, is reachable, but hard to reach. And one is earthly, materialistic, detail-oriented, down to earth. I need to formulate, I need to see, I need to visualize. Introducing the difference between the male and the female. Introducing the difference between one which is abstract and one which is detail-oriented. An example. You're preparing an event. It's a bar mitzvah for your son, okay? Now, you're very concerned with the color of the tablecloths, the centerpiece, the dress code, the decor, the food, the caterer, the photographer, the details. You sit down and talk to your husband and you say, listen, we have to decide on what flowers we're doing. And he says, who cares? Here's the check and just do it. Whatever makes you happy is going to be okay. He couldn't care less. Why? Because the makeup of the man is just that. He is a donor of the sperm, a donor of the check. That's his position. The way God made the makeup of the male, he is the mashpia. He's the pitcher. He'll pour down, he'll happily give you $5 to buy the flour, and you will make challah and cake and bagels and bread and desserts. With the $5, you can create and you can make. You're together for one night. He donated that sperm to you. And 9 months later, there's an entire person from one night. Incredible. Heaven and earth, opposites, differences. Now, let's take a look in the heavenly court for a second to understand what is a mashpia, what is a makabel. The heaven, for example, will pour down rain upon the earth. The earth will then respond and will start moving upward by producing produce, thanks to the rain. So God brings down a soul into a body, which produces a human being. In turn, that human being takes its tools, body and soul, and works in sync together. Heaven and soul is merging. And that's exactly what marriage is. Marriage is that heaven and soul, heaven and earth are coming together. Now, is it possible for heaven and earth to come together? Is that compatible? Does that work? And that's why we said yesterday that it can only work because that was the godly plan. Because God created the first human being, male and female. Because God is male and female. How do we know it? Because God said, "B'tselem Elokim." Look at the pasuk, Kavav and Kav Zayin in Perek Aleph of Parshat Bereshit, and God said, "B'tselem Elokim bara otam." I'm creating this male and female in my image. What is the image of God? Zachar unikeva, male and female. Thereby, we are understanding that the concept of a male and a female naturally are opposites, naturally are far from each other, but because God instituted and God already planned and laid the ground and gave us the strength for the two opposites to merge, for the mashpia to donate the sperm to the makabel, to the recipient, therefore the plan will work. How? So let's take a look at a very interesting song, Jewish song, that each and every one of us know, and each and every one of us sing. And it's like the Jewish song. It goes like this: Oseh Shalom Bimromav. How many times do we sing that? Oseh Shalom Bimromav. Heard that song? Okay, and we don't even know what we're saying. We're saying Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Val Kol Yisrael. What is that? What is this Oseh Shalom Bimromav? We are actually saying the maker of peace in heaven will make peace unto us. So now the question gets so much larger. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, the maker of peace, which is God Almighty. Is there a problem in heaven? What is God doing all day? And we're told God is sitting on his Kiseh HaKavod, his throne, his honorable throne, and he's making peace between his angels. Angels are supposed to be angelic. angels are supposed to be like perfect. Peace between them. It goes further and says, who are the angels that he has to make peace? There are two angels. One is called Michael and one is called Gabriel. We have many children that are named Michael, Gabriel. They're named after two very, very important angels. Michael sits at the right of God's throne. Gabriel sits on the left of God's throne. And so you can imagine the image. These are two important angels that are surrounding God. What's Michael's job? His job is to be the donor of rain, the donor of kindness, the donor of life. He represents the angel of life. He represents chesed, kindness, unlimited kindness that pours down from heaven. Who is Gabriel? Gabriel, like you hear, Gabriel, what do you hear? What's the root of Gabriel? Gibor, Gvura, strength. Gabriel represents fire. Gabriel represents passion. Gabriel represents strength. Gabriel represents tolerance. Gabriel represents holding it all together. Now, we can understand that fire and water are not compatible. Fire is afraid of water because the moment water gets to fire, the fire ceases to exist. Thereby, God stands between them or sits on his throne between them and allows for each one to have their separate identity and each one to feel comfortable and to be okay. One day, let's go into Egypt, and it's already towards the end of the slavery, and God is showing his might, his strength, who he is, and he's bringing down the 10 plagues upon the Egyptians. For who? For them to know, Ki Ani Hashem, that I am God. Comes to a special plague. The plague is called Barad. What is Barad? It is an icicle. And in the icicle is a fire. So when the icicles came down from heaven, rained down from heaven, they froze upon the bodies of the Egyptians, and then they burnt their bodies. Now you're asking a question. The fire, the flame of fire is within the ice. How is that possible? How can it be that fire and water are working together? Comes God and says, "Oh, says Shalom, I'm going to make peace today. I'm going to ask you, I need a favor from you. I want to do something spectacular, something miraculous, something that never happened before. I want to merge. I want your two powers to merge. Will you?" Now, because they are angels, one of the natural tendency of an angel or the natural makeup of an angel is bittul, self-nullification. I don't exist for myself. I exist for God. So if God is asking me to do something, obviously I want to do it. So each one bends and makes space for his position and says, okay, yes, I am water or ice. And yes, I naturally extinguish fire. But for the sake of what God wants to create today, and he wants fire to be able to exist and survive within the water, each one will nullify their power and work in sync. Amazing. It's an incredible, incredible concept. That's what it means. Ose shalom bimromav. Let's go further and go to another example. We go to the 10th plague, and the 10th plague was the final plague where God is actually tapping into Paro. He's the firstborn, and he says this plague is going to kill the firstborn Egyptian, which threatened Paro's existence. So he became very, very nervous. And of course, all the firstborn Egyptians became very, very nervous. And they had a brilliant idea. Let's move in to the Jewish home and sit in the same bed as the Jewish firstborn. And like this, God is not going to know. Now, in anticipation for this balagan, God already asked the Jews to take the blood of the Korban Pesach, of that sacrifice, that last meal that they were going to eat right before they leave Egypt, and place it on the doorpost. And also they made a Brit Milah the night before they left Egypt, take that blood and put it on the doorpost, which gives us a little bit of a free understanding of the mezuzah, because the mezuzah is here to protect and to identify us. And so God needed that blood to identify which is a Jewish home, which is not a Jewish home, thus creating that holiday that we call Pesach, which is to pass over the Jewish home and allow for the Jewish firstborn to live, to be alive. But then the Egyptian thought they're outsmarting God and thought that they can do something even greater. And so they entered the home of the Jew and they slept in the same bed. What is happening now here is that God now has to commission two angels, the angel of life and the angel of death, in the same home, in the same bedroom, in the same bed. Now, how does that work? Either I'm killing or I'm making live. It's two angels that have two different jobs. And this is what God did. He took Malach Michael, who is kind, who is responsible for life. He took Malach Gabriel, who is the tougher one, that from him comes the source of the angel of death. And he says, you're going to again work together. And we're going to, at the same time that we're allowing the Jew to live, the Goy is going to die. Let's fast forward to a third situation, which is the splitting of the Red Sea. Exactly the same story. When we say that the merge of the couple is as hard, kashe kikriyat yamsuf, is as difficult as the splitting of the Red Sea, and we ask, is there anything that's really difficult for God? What is so difficult? What happened by the splitting of the Red Sea that was so difficult? At the same moment that a Jew was walking, it was dry land, and the Egyptian could have been side by side. He was sinking, and the Jew was experiencing a smooth sailing, which means that, again, the two angels were working in sync. One more point, that the last of the 10 plagues, with all the other plagues, God said it's going to happen, but he never gave a specific moment or a specific hour. When it came to that 10th plague, he said it's going to be at midnight. He said, because every clock in the house reads differently. There's a minute before, a minute later. So God knows exactly when it's midnight. We don't know. So he says approximately midnight. What's midnight? Midnight is something very interesting. When the sun sets and the moon comes out, and first it's like, we can say it's almost like my children would say, it's like a blue dark, they would say. It's like, it's not completely dark, and it's getting darker and darker and darker and darker. So we say Malach Gabriel is responsible for shutting down the lights at night, for creating that darkness, that pitch black. And then Malach Michael has to work very, very hard for dawn to break. So when you see that moment, that split moment when it was dark, and then all of a sudden the light is perching, it's coming out. So we say, when does Malach Michael start to work? After midnight. What happens exactly at midnight? It's like, on the parliament, we have the changing of the guards. Now, what happens at the changing of the guards? At one point, the two are merging because we're not allowing the parliament to be without the guards or Buckingham Palace. So just imagine at one moment, the two guards are one next to each other, the two lines are merging. So imagine that the concept of the two angels that are sitting one on top of the other. That's midnight. So when God has to create two different episodes, two opposite episodes, where the Egyptians are dying and the Jews are living, where the angel of death and the angel of life are working in sync. What is the hour that he chooses to do it? At exactly midnight, when there is the merge, when the two of them are one on top of the other, when the two of them are exchanging roles, but right before they exchange roles, they're on top of each other. Quite incredible. Now, let's take this to our story with the male and female and the concept of the mashpia versus the makabel. The mashpia will say the pitcher that pours down the sperm into the recipient, the makabel, or gives you the check for you to make, for you to buy your groceries and create a beautiful buffet from literally so little, but you created so much more. So we understand that in a marriage, marriage is the merge of two opposite angels, two opposite creatures, chesed and gvura. So we stop a moment to think, who is who? Who is represented by Malach Mikael? Who is represented by Malach Gabriel? Who is water? Who is fire? Who is the cool cat in the relationship? Who is the passionate one in the relationship? Who is giving a one-time stand and who's tolerating and who's holding it all together? Who is the backbone in the home? Who is the fire in the home? Who is the cool, calm, okay, it's pagrav, it's going to be okay. We recognize in this relationship that the male is definitely represented by Malach Michael, Chesed, the water, the cool, calm, kind, giver, donor, and the female is the recipient. She's passionate, she's hot, she's on fire, she's holding it all together, she's tolerating it, her back is hurting, but she's holding that baby for 9 months, and she is taking whatever she gets, and she's creating so much more. At the same time, she's detail-oriented, right? The sperm has no detail. The baby has so much detail. So that is why she cares what color the flowers are on her son's bar mitzvah. And he says, I'm writing the check. Go to the florist and buy whatever you want. Who cares? And you say, thank you. I'm glad that I can make that decision. So what do we see? That the male and female are polar opposites. And yet, God says, we're going to create something called shalom bayit, peace in the home. Why peace in the home? What does that have to do with that? Let's take another question. When I welcome you, today is Thursday, and I say, oh, it's Yom Chamishi. Yom Chamishi, Chamishi Shalom. You ever heard of Yom Chamishi Shalom? No. Have a good day. It's Thursday. It's Erev Shabbat. There's so much to do. There's so much stress. I have to shop. I have to do this and that and the other, clean. But when I meet somebody on the street and it's Shabbat, automatically out of my mouth comes out Shabbat Shalom, right? Now, I'm not saying Yom Rishon Shalom. I'm not saying Yom Sheni Shalom. I'm saying Shabbat Shalom. Pourquoi? What does Shabbat have to do with Shalom? What is Shabbat? Shabbat is heaven and earth merging. We said this, we tapped upon this, I think yesterday or the day before. Heaven and earth coming together. The world is still running as if it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That means the sun is rising, the sun is setting, and it's storming, and it's icing. Everything is happening. But in my house, everything turned off. I am ushering in the Shabbat. I'm bringing God into my home in a very visual, real, revealed way. So Shabbat means heaven and earth have joined. What is Shalom Bayit? The same concept. The male and female have joined, two opposites. Now, what is Shalom really? When we say Ose Shalom Bimramav, we translate it, God is making peace in heaven. Wrong. When we say Shalom Bayit, make peace in the home. Wrong. When we say Shabbat Shalom, Peace be unto you, Shabbat. Wrong. What is shalom? Look at shalom. What is the word shalom? What is shin lamed mem? Shalem, shleimut, wholesomeness, oneness. Shabbat is the day when we reveal the oneness of God in this world. In our home, we reveal the oneness, not two people that are just living as two roommates, one soul that is becoming one body in one bed, in one bedroom, in Kodesh Kedashim. Oh, says Shalom Bimromav. God is taking two angels and making one out of them for his purposes. That's what God is doing with a male and female. And what is that key ingredient? Like we said in the beginning, that an angel, in order for the angel to work in sync with an opposite angel, they need bittul. They need self-nullification. And so the two, the male and the female, the very first ingredient, when you allow somebody into your life and make space for the other, you have to nullify the I, because we're becoming a we. Note the bracha we make in the mikvah. Al hativila. So tivila comes from tovel, means immersion. But what are the letters in tivila? Tet, vet, lamed is the shoresh, is the root. Turn it around and get bittul. I'm nullifying myself, I'm going underwater, and that represents my ability to nullify my I and allow my husband into my space to become one. Bittul. Now, let's go back to the mechitza story. In the kitchen, well, I just gave it away. So I wanted to ask you a question. When does fire and water work in sync in your own home on a daily basis? And so we said, it's in the kitchen. In the kitchen, I open up the fire, put a pot directly on the fire, fill it with water, wait for it to boil, put in my pasta, and voila, I have a meal. What allows for fire and water to work together? The mechitza, that pot. That pot is the aid that allows. I'm not God, I can't merge. So marriage is about merging. But what do you see? That even in my marriage, when I'm meant to merge, there's a moment for mechitza, there's a moment for that pot, there's a moment for that separation. There's a moment in time where God gives me a very visual, color, striking color, red. We're on Fleet or anywhere you are in the world, every stop sign is red, 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 red. And what does it say? Stop, arrête, stop. So God gives me a tool, a gift that is red, and he tells me, step back, reflect, see who you're living with, learn to communicate, learn to keep your hands on under your chair, to be nice, and be able to look at your husband, communicate with him, caress him with your smile, and kiss him with your eyes and your words, hug him with your actions. And that moment, you're able to express a much deeper soul relationship than the external, perhaps superficial hug, because you've hugged his insides, you've hugged his soul. Now, both are necessary, right? Because the Torah tells us, we saw it yesterday in the pasuk, v'hayu lebasar echad. We must become one body, unishama echad, and one soul. How does that happen? During that gifted moment, those 12 days, when God says, step back, separate, what are we doing then? We are investing our time to communicate, to get to know the soul of the man. The man walks into the house and you say, oh my God, you have a headache. And he says, how do you know? I see that crunched up forehead. I see those eyes. Something is bothering you. You're having dinner together and you note that your husband is negotiating with the fork. Like the fork is going like this and like that. And you say, something bothering you? You're having a debate? And he says, how do you know? I said, you notice his body language. You got to know him so well that you're able to understand that which is not being spoken. That's oneness. That's sensitivity. That is tzniut. I'm so sensitive to his essence, to his being. I'm sensitive to his touch, like he is sensitive to my physical touch, but I am sensitive to his essence. That creates a powerful relationship. So here we developed on the concept of the two different roles in the relationship and the merging in that relationship, but I want to touch upon something else, which also will talk and help us understand the difference of the mashpia and the makabel. The mashpia, like we said, is more spiritual. You know, in real life, a mashpia would be a teacher, a mentor, somebody that's giving you advice and conseil, and somebody that maybe is a little bit more knowledgeable than you. And you being the student, the makabel, the recipient. In marriage, it's a relationship, equal relationship, but different roles. And that's what we have to understand. There are different roles for each partner in the relationship. And if we can maintain our role and understand our role, we will then obtain the highest level in our marriage, which is satisfaction. Which means if we allow Monsieur to do his part as best as he could, which is he is the donor, he is the initiator, he is the one that sets the tone and says, he comes towards you and he opens up his arms towards you, and then he's watching. He's watching how you're going to receive the role he took, how you're going to receive that which he initiated. Will you return? Will it be kamayim hapanim el hapanim? Will it be exactly the face that he showed me, the smile that he showed me, the hug that he showed me? Will I return it? Or will I be standing like this, frozen, because I want to see more, because it's not enough? Show me more, give me more, and then I'll respond more. We need to move in the same pace. We need to allow him to be what he does best, and then be what we do best. Now, which means express our femininity, express our, he's attracted to us, he needs us, he wants us, he's looking towards us, he's initiating, and we have to just respond with the tune that he has set. Now, we touched upon something yesterday, which is the fact that every single child is greeted by a mother differently when they come home from school, because every child needs something different. One child needs a hug, one child needs a drink, one child needs to be helped with the boots coming off, whatever it is, every child needs something different. Every time we are together, our needs might be different. And notice that when a teacher is teaching and the students are listening, the teacher's passion for teaching is heightened. The teacher is loving what he or she is doing so much more because of the reaction by the student. So you are the recipients of all of this love, but you need to give it back. You need to show the more you give, the more he will give. So together it becomes an explosion, a volcano of feelings, of needs that one is responding to the other. Now, every single time that we're together, the precondition, the setting, the stage might be a little bit different. It might be that we've had a very, very difficult day at work, with the children, with a friend. And when our spouse comes, we need to, before we can actually open up our arms, we need to talk, which is great. There is a very, very important need to have what we call a warm-up hour, where we discuss and we talk, and that makes that back and forth relationship is like his arms opening and my arms responding. I just need him to listen. I just need to talk. So he's a good listener and I'm a good talker, and he's a good responder because I'm teaching him how to communicate. And together, what we're creating is a beautiful scene of a husband and wife interacting and communicating. Nobody is losing themselves. Each one is becoming more themselves and merging at the same time. So we maintain our individuality because, after all, I'm a woman and he's a man. I have needs, he has needs, maybe each one a little bit different. He's initiating, I'm responding. And here comes another interesting concept. When we are together, we notice that he's filled with passion, filled with excitement, filled with needs. We're responding, we're loving it. It's a marathon out there. And then comes the ultimate explosion. We have merged. We have become one. We actually feel that oneness, that Adam and Eve that have joined once again. And then what happens when a volcano erupts? It starts to deflate. And what happens? We're left with a man that is fatigué. He's very, very tired. And we think to ourselves, how insulting. What just happened? Here was a volcano about to erupt. There was such fire in the room. There was such passion. There was something going on. And all of a sudden, he's snoring in my face. Is that it? He got his needs and he doesn't need me anymore? Or am I understanding the different roles? When you receive something, you're really excited. When somebody gave it to you, he took something from himself and he now gave it to you. Now it belongs to you. So yes, he has excitement from giving you the gift, but you have more excitement because you have the gift. So now imagine, when we talk about a couple, the male gets to see his woman, his wife, and he knows, his brain knows that he loves her. Where is the sperm created from? From the center of the brain, from his knowledge that he wants her, that he loves her, that he cares. And so it travels and travels and travels and travels until finally the ultimate merge. It's exhausting. We received. We were exhausted maybe an hour ago, and now we're exhilarated. We're on fire. We're excited. We obtained, we received. Don't be insulted. Just understand. Understand the different roles. Once you understand the different roles, you say, oh, wow, amazing, incredible. Now I understand. So if there's something that we could have gotten from today's class, it's that there are two different roles. Don't try to be him. He's looking, let's give you another example. Everybody knows that a rose is red. Okay. When we look at a rose, what do we say? How beautiful. Isn't it? It's beautiful. I love roses. I don't say I love, the roses are so red that they're sticking in my face and they're like, okay. A rose is red. Is it provocative? No. It's beautiful. It makes me feel good. I enjoy it. I love it. A woman, when we look at a woman, what do we say about the woman? What is the man looking in a woman? Is he looking for a provocative woman? Is he looking for the red in the rose? Or is he looking for the refinement in the rose? So again, a man as the mashpia, as the donor, is looking for a feminine, refined, kind, nice rose. He doesn't need you to be flirting with other men for him to be turned on to you. He doesn't need you to be provocative in your style, in your dress, in your behavior. He's looking for a feminine woman in his life. And that is you. So when you give to the other that which the other needs, what will be the end? An explosion of true love, an explosion of true merging, an explosion of the ultimate feeling of friendship, of harmony, of need, of delight, of incredible feeling of satisfaction by feeling wholesome, by feeling like we're not two, but we are one. All explaining what is Shalom Bayit. Shalom Bayit, what again is the root? The root is Shalem. We're not talking, we're trying to take two opposites and become one and merge them so that they become one whole, so that we cannot differentiate. So like Rabbi Banon had said in his opening message, where the rabbi went to the doctor and he told the doctor, "Doctor, my wife's foot is hurting us." That's what it's about. It's my wife's foot is hurting us. So when we become one, and what hurts him, or what hurts me, hurts both of us, or his need is my wish, or if he likes a certain dish, I'm happy to make it. And if I like a certain furniture, he's happy to buy it, because we're one. So if I'm happy, he's happy. And that is why that example in the beginning of this class was that what color flowers are we going to use at the bar mitzvah? And he says, I don't care. Here's the check and go buy it. Because if that makes you happy, I'm different from you. I'm not detail oriented, but I appreciate that you are. So you do your job and you run the show, and I'll do my job and I'll give you the check. It doesn't mean that he's cold. It doesn't mean that he doesn't care. It doesn't mean that he's not interested. It doesn't mean he doesn't appreciate it. When that bar mitzvah is done and hosted and everything is so perfect, he'll get up and make a speech and say, thank you to my wife for putting all of this together. Without her, I could have not done it, because she did her role perfectly and he did his role perfectly. Shalem. Oseh shalom bimromav. Now, our final situation is, remember that mechitza, remember that pot that is between the fire and the water. So we know that intimacy is private, and we said that intimacy really comes from into me, you see. It's a private moment. Every time, where does marriage come from? Why do we get married? Because we're imitating God. Because God is male and female, and because we are created in his image, we must become male and female. We must become one with him. So every time we get married, every time there's a marriage, we said God is dancing, God is celebrating. He's celebrating that there's another image of him. During intimacy, we said it has to be behind closed doors, under lock and key. Every time we engage in something godly, and we, the bride, tune in to God, the groom, in an intimate moment, we're completely focused on God. So when we're in the synagogue and it's an intimate moment with God, and a male was naturally gifted with extra measure of passion, he will sport a talit that will help him focus on the fact that he's intimate. So the talit is over his head and he's wrapping in because he has to focus. The woman note is on another side of the mechitza. She's the fire under the pot. She is able to visualize and see what's going on the other side, where he can't. Why? Because her focus is she's able to maintain her intimate moment with God. In fact, watching the Torah come out is creating that intimate moment. And even when she sees the men praying, that heightens her feeling for God. When the man turns around and looks at the woman during prayers, he loses his concentration completely. So to help each one create a pasta, a beautiful, intimate moment with God, we have a mechitza. Now let's go to the wedding. We're sitting at a wedding and there's 5 couples at the table, 5 couples. So each one is dancing only with their husband, but then it's not fun. My husband's tired. My husband can't really dance. I'll dance with the neighbor's husband. And the wife is watching. She goes, he's holding my neighbor, my female neighbor, a little bit tighter than for comfort. I don't like that. I don't come home at night and says, what's going on? He says, yeah, you know what? She dances much better. She smells better. She looks better. She feels better. You broke that mechitza. You broke the boundaries. You allowed somebody else behind closed doors. Now, I'm not giving you a dramatic and a fanatical story because this is real life. This is real story. Not everybody tells you that. But after every wedding, there are going to be some women coming home not very happy with their husband's behavior, or the vice versa, or the husband coming home not happy with their wife's behavior. God gave us a gift. The mechitza. The bedroom, there's no mechitza. The bedroom, there's no shame. The bedroom, there's nothing to hide because that's permitted. That's your kodesh kodashim. In public, boundaries, borders. You don't need to feel somebody else's, there was a time when the Rebbe would give dollars and people would come and want to kiss the Rebbe's hand or hug the Rebbe. And the Rebbe would say so elegantly, my mother taught me not to touch what doesn't belong to me. And everybody, and I use that line a lot because many people will come to my home and they want to hug me, they want to kiss me, say, I was taught not to, only to touch what belongs to me, not to, oh, wow. And a lot of people will say, if the entire world would behave in this manner, we would have so much peace in our home. Keep your hands on your husband and off everybody else. Maintain a closed door policy. It's going to serve you so well. It's going to give you that satisfaction, that happiness, that bliss that you so deserve. The bliss that existed between Adam and Eve before the Chet HaEgel, before the sin, in Gan Eden, the story that we talk about under the chuppah during the 7 brachot, where we constantly mention and go back to that moment of Ahava, of Reyut, of Ditza, the Chedva, all of these different explanations of joy and bliss and happiness and friendship and love. Shalom, shalom. Have a wonderful day.